Today we read from the book of Job, chapter 32, verses 22 to 32. That is so not right. It's book 31. See, y'all, this is why I apologize. This morning it was a realization of, oh, we had put intention, so y'all, sorry, we get it 2 weeks in a row, and we're just, I don't catch every error. It is what it is. And I think that it's important because we read these words from the book of Job. And let my shoulder blade fall from my shoulder, let my arm be broken from its socket. For I was in terror of calamity from God, and I could not have faced God's majesty. If I had made gold my trust, or called fine gold my confidence, if I had rejoiced because my wealth was greater, because my hand had gotten much, if I had looked at the sun when it shone, or the moon moving in splendor, and my heart had been secretly enticed, and my mouth has kissed my hand, this also would be an iniquity to be punished by the judges. For I should have been false to God above. If I had rejoiced at the ruin of him that hated me, or exulted when evil overtook him, I had not let my mouth sin by asking for his life with a curse. If the man in my tent had said, who is there that has not been filled with his meat? The sojourner has not lodged in this street. I have opened my doors to the wayfarer. If I had concealed my transgressions from men by hiding my iniquity, because I stood in great fear of the multitude and the contempt of families, oh, that I had one to hear me. Here is my signature. Let the Almighty answer me. Oh, that I had the indictment written by my adversity. Surely I would have carried it on my shoulder. I would bind it on me as a crown. I would give an account of all my steps. Like a prince I would approach him. If my land has cried out against me, and its furrows have wept together, if I have eaten its yield without payment and caused the death of its owners, the thorns grow instead of wheat, and foul weeds instead of barley, and the words of Job are ended. This is the reading of our word.
Thanks be to God.
It's difficult to take one small, short passage from the book of Job. If you are not familiar with the book of Job, it is a book that I often recommend for people to read when they are going through difficult times, depending on what it is. Because it's an interesting study on faith under pressure. Faith under pressure. You see, Job had it all. He had the house. He had kids who probably listened to them in going out the door and making it not take an hour. He had the farm. He had the wealth. He had it all. And then as we continue into the book of Job, we read about Satan and God. See, Satan says, oh, look at your servant Job. He has a hedge around him. You know, we put fences around us to keep bad things out, right? There's a reason the grass is greener on the other side. Probably because they water it. Let me just throw that out. And it's an interesting dialogue in our faith because it asks of us a question of God. Do we view God as this wonderful, loving God who is with us in all of life's ups and downs? Or do we view God as someone who rolls a dice and says, ha ha, here's your choice? Because the book of Job tells of a story of God letting Satan take away all of the good things of Job in order to prove Satan wrong. I don't know about y'all, but I don't want to be Job. this life to try to make our space, our time, our lives, our jobs. We want to be happy and excited and at least earn enough money to retire on, right? We hope. Fingers crossed. We want our health to stay because, if you remember, Job is not only all of the things of Job's life are taken away. He loses his children, he loses his house, he loses everything, and then he receives the indignity of receiving boils around and across his skin. I don't know about y'all, but that's not fun. I don't even like mosquito bites. Can you picture, my closest image of that is like fire ants all over your body. Who's cringing a little bit? We often, though, feel as if we have had the rugs pulled out from underneath us. We feel like God's hand is against us in this life because we've had a job loss, a family member loss, or a family member gets sick, or we ourselves get sick. We can't get better. We feel like from December to March, there is no way we get rid of that cold. We're in the hospital, we're out of the hospital, and the minute we get out of the hospital, we fall down and break our leg. Our dog dies. If you have a cat, I'm sorry, it's okay. We hear of a friend who's going through a tough time, and it just feels overwhelmingly like it also is not just against us, but against one another. It's really, really hard to say, I believe in God, and God's going to make everything wonderful. Sunshine and roses and chocolate, because if you don't have chocolate, it's what's life. I don't know about you all, but it is really, really hard to say, ooh, I believe in God so strongly that I know I'm going to come out on the other side good and fine and even better. It's hard. And if we don't acknowledge the difficulty of that, then we negate the beauty of faith. For you see, Job didn't know the end of his own story. He didn't know at the end of the book that all things would be restored to him and made even more. I think we're skeptical of the possibility of that in this life. And because we are skeptical and cynical and fearful, we don't count our blessings when we get them. We don't. We're looking towards the negative, just like the wonderful friends of Job are like, well, hey, Job, in case you missed it, all of your children died. In case you missed it, you're covered in boils. Why are you still proclaiming the goodness of God, Job? Why and how do you still have faith under this amount of pressure? Job's complicated in that because in a lot of ways, my own doubts under such pressure feel almost superficial, right? I mean, if I cannot be as faithful as Job when I'm going through a difficult time in life, then am I even really faithful? ask ourselves these questions. Because the beauty of Job is that we only hear his responses out loud. We don't hear the internal dialogue. And there is great and deep, profound power in eternal and in internal dialogue. You see, Job doesn't tell us to not ask questions, to not doubt. But it tells us to instead, before we bespeak of those doubts and bespeak of those questions, to think about what it says about our faith. What does it say about Job's faith when he hears these words of his friends and he listens to them? He listens to them and then he says, you know, you're right, but here's God. That's faith. And I think that's a faith that we can look towards. We're under pressure, y'all. If you don't feel the weight of the world on your shoulders some days, are you even really living? If you don't feel the weight of responsibility for today and for tomorrow, be it, do I make enough money to pay my bills? Are my kids getting what they need? Is my spouse, am I loving them enough? Am I doing all of these things? Am I going to make that doctor's appointment tomorrow? My parents are sick. My kids are sick. I am sick. I don't know about y'all, but I realized this last week that we had exactly 2.5 months left in this decade. Actually, I didn't realize it. I had to have a meme on Facebook show me that there's 2.5 months left in this decade, and I went, no. No. There's not. That's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure. And we go through life feeling a lot of pressure to meet expectations. Oh, those expectations, right? Job sets up an expectation of immense and wonderful faith. And I don't know about you all, but I fall short. I fall short. I don't think I could respond so lovingly, eloquently if my life was like Job's. The beauty of Job, though, too, and this is some of what we had talked about in Bible study, is that Job is alive during a time of faith in which the people of Israel had gone through the exile. They're like on page 3 of this timeline. They'd gone through the Babylonian exile in which the Babylonians had conquered the kingdoms after they had split. You know, you had the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. You had Jerusalem in the middle. The kingdoms had started to fall as they had been taken over by the Assyrians and the Babylonians. Southern kingdom was then divided. Those that stayed behind were the poor individuals, such as Job was one of those that was behind. The rest were in Babylon. The ruling class and the priest class went to Babylon. So they divided the people, and still they have faith. They'd lost their temples. They'd lost their identity. They've been overtaken and overrun and still have faith. And then they end up being this righteous man with all these things that happen to him, and he still has faith. Where's ours? I had a lot of conversations over the last several weeks regarding faith under pressure. I know of so many individuals who in and throughout their lives have gone to church and all these other things, and then it's, well, I'm not going to go back because. A, B, or C. Fill in the blank, right? Churches divide over really weird things. You know the number one divider of a church? You want to guess? That. Right there. It's not what we do or how we do it. It's because we, when under pressure, have faith, right? We're going to stick to our faith. We're going to stick to our guns. We're going to believe. But we forget that every other person beside us is also under the same amount of pressure. We forget that every single person in this world is facing something. It might not be as bad as Job. Praise God, right? I don't want that. But it doesn't negate that right beside you could be someone facing something else. That right beside you, or in the car beside you, or on those other sort of things. And so when we, as people of faith, are under pressure, we stick and hold steadfastly to our faith, we must also recall that everyone else is in the same boat. And I don't know about you all, but when we're all together in the same boat, it makes it easier, doesn't it? Part of the beauty of Job is to remind us as people of faith when we read through Scripture that we're not alone. Job went through all of these horrific things in and through his time in life. And he never once blamed God. And in that, he also recalls to us that we go through a lot of horrific things in this life. Things that put a weight on our shoulders and a burden on our hearts. Things that might not happen in an instant, but build up over time. Because I think we assume pressure is like an instantaneous event, like boom, it happens and a weight falls down. Let me tell y'all, when you are carrying a yoke, if you've never carried like a yoke with water on it, it's an experience. But you don't get the buckets filled all at once. You fill one on one side, but one on the other side, and then try to pick it up. Often the pressure we feel is not these major life things. It's all the little things that build up and up and up. You look around. In our world today, we're all hurting. We're feeling the pressure. And so the challenge that we face as people of faith is how to find that faith under our pressure. How to say, but here's God. Oh, y'all didn't know. You get homework. Is to be like Job. For whatever is thrown at you, in whatever way, whether it is you wake up in the morning and it takes you an hour to get out of bed because you're in pain. Or you get a phone call that you got to drive back down because somebody else is in the hospital. Or you have kids in your class whose situation is beyond you. Or the job is tough, or you get stressed out. Take a moment and find God in that moment. Take a moment and find God in that moment. For when we have faith under pressure, we will have faith once the pressure is gone.